Deacon, what's Bible for?
The Bible says
The
Bible says love.
I like to all them stories and songs from the Bible.
And what's the Bible teach us?
I believe what the Bible teaches.
Because it's in the Bible.
There are experts on the Bible.
The book of Genesis is the very first book in the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament for believers. Genesis kicks off with a Hebrew word that might be familiar to some, Bereshit, meaning in beginning. This word sets the stage for an account of creation, the early days of humanity, and the roots of the Jewish people. Now, Genesis isn't just any story. It's the opening act of the Torah, or Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. Tradition has long pointed to Moses as the author, though many scholars think it might have been written down later, somewhere between the 5th and 3rd centuries BC. Many Bible scholars today also suggest that parts of Genesis are less about precise historical events and more about conveying the beliefs, values, and relationships that shape faith. Genesis is structured into 2 main parts. The first, called the primeval history, that's chapters 1 through 11, introduces big, universal themes like creation, humanity's relationship with God, and how sin leads to separation. In this section, we see God crafting a good world for people to live in, but as humans begin to go astray, God responds. This leads us to the well-known story of Noah, who finds favor with God. Here, God preserves Noah and his family through the flood, hinting at a fresh start and a renewed relationship with humankind. The second part, ancestral history, consisting of chapters 12 through 50, zooms in on the beginnings of Israel, God's chosen people. It starts with Abram, later to be known as Abraham, who leaves his homeland for Canaan at God's direction and continues through his son Isaac and grandson Jacob. God establishes a covenant, a special agreement with Abraham and his family, promising land and blessings. Through twists and turns, this family line finds itself in Egypt by the end of Genesis, setting the scene for the next major story in the Bible, the Exodus. One interesting aspect of Genesis is the series of covenants or promises made by God, which shift in focus from all of humanity, like with Noah, to a specific family, like Abraham's descendants. These covenants are foundational, giving the Jewish people a sense of divine promise and a connection to the land of Canaan. In terms of style, Genesis has a unique flavor. Its name, which means origin or beginning, comes from the Latin and Greek versions of the Bible. Genesis is part of what scholars call the antiquities genre, popular in ancient cultures for its way of blending history, genealogy, and legends. Much like other ancient works, it doesn't separate myths or legends from historical facts as we might today. Think of it as a rich blend of stories, highlighting the heroes, ancestors, and the past generations that shaped the present. Throughout Genesis, we encounter the Toledot phrases, which essentially mean, "These are the generations." This phrase appears 11 times, marking the shift to new stories or characters, like the generations of heaven and earth, or the generations of Noah. These Toledot sections divide Genesis into various narratives, moving us through the lives of figures like Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, each bringing something unique to the story. To sum it all up, Genesis isn't just a story about the beginning of the world. It's about the foundations of faith, relationships, and covenants that would shape the course of Israel's history, and ultimately point to God's ongoing work through Yeshua and believers today. It's a book that invites us to consider our beginnings, our place in the story, and the enduring faithfulness of God throughout all generations.